Hey folks, it's John with KGTropicals.com, bringing you episode 3 of KG Q&A. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I want to mention something real quick before I get to the first question, and that is, your questions do not have to be only about African cichlids. I know that's kind of how we've formed our reputation, is by African cichlids. It's kind of what we specialize in, but there's very few freshwater fish that I have not kept in 22 years of fish keeping. So you can ask questions about anything you want. If I can't answer it, well, I'm going to be kind of embarrassed because I'm going to do things a different way. I promise you I'm going to do it this way. What you're going to see is my genuine, off the top of my head answers, because I am not going to proofread these questions. I'm going to read them, answer them, move on to the next one. It's going to complicate things a little bit, and I may end up getting a little bit embarrassed as we go, because if you ask me something that I don't know, I'm going to have to say on video, I don't know. So, but I think it's going to add an interesting little twist, and the answers that you get from me are going to be genuine. I think that's a fun little thing that we're going to do here on KG Q&A. So, okay, first question comes from Brian McKenna, and I'm going to answer all these questions in order as they come in. I think I've got 48 of them right now, so it's going to take a while. But Brian McKenna, I'm most likely going to be setting up a 75-gallon tank, and I understand the process of cycling a tank, but not how many fish you should add right off the bat to diffuse aggression, but not put too much stress on the fish being a new cycled tank. The way I would be cycling the tank would be the store-bought product you mentioned in one of your past videos. I can't think of the name of it. Love your videos, very informative, and I look forward to doing business with you in the future. Well, I look forward to doing business with you too, Mr. Brian. The answer to your question is be smart about it. A new tank, you can have problems when you're putting a bunch of fish into a brand new tank that has just cycled. I would say be smart, make sure your tank is very well cycled and established. Use other fish if you have to, cheaper fish, put something else in there to make sure that it's good and ready to go before you go spend all of your money on African cichlids. These things can get pretty expensive, so if you're buying a bunch of expensive Africans and you throw them in there and you have a big ammonia spike, you're going to be pretty pissed, and you're going to go back to your pet store and want to get your money back, and they're not going to give it to you because it's your fault that those fish died. So, you know, I would definitely, you know, if you're setting up a 75-gallon tank, which is what you say you are, and you're going to put 30 fish in there, don't put them all in one shot. I mean, that you're pretty much asking for trouble then. Maybe put half of them in there and then add them in groups of 6 to 8. If you put too small a group in at once in the very beginning, what you end up with is they all take their own territories, and once you add more, you're going to have a battle on your hands. So it's better to put a dozen or so in when you first put them in your tank. That'll help out a lot. Okay. Fabio Dos Santos. Remember that supermodel, Fabio? Way back. Some of y'all are probably too young for him. He looked like a Ken doll. He looked like Thor is what he looked like. And the guy was one of the most successful male models on the planet. And he gets on a roller coaster in the front row and got hit in the face with a bird. Look it up. It's funny. I feel bad for the guy. But anyway, first of all, thank you for your videos. If I know anything from African cichlids, it's because of your videos. I recently got fry from my first colony. Good job. My question to you is regarding creating a rack system like you had in your garage. How did you manage it during the winter when temperatures can drop below freezing? Any special setup in the garage prior to building the racks? I'm saving to make a big purchase from you and start my peacock colonies. That's cool. I'm looking forward to that. We didn't have to do anything in our garage because it was already set up. The people that lived in the house before us used to use it as like an activities room. They had a pool table out there and stuff like that. So it was insulated and heated with baseboard heats. So it was ready to go. We didn't have to do anything. But one thing I would tell you to keep in mind, if you're putting in a big system like we did, we had 120 tanks in our garage. If you're putting a big system like that in, understand that it's going to cost you a lot of money, but if you're putting that many tanks in a garage, you're not doing it for fun. You're doing it because you want to start a business. So, you know that things are going to be expensive. But if you're doing this, you're going to put 4 or 5 tanks out in a 2-car garage. You're going to pay a lot of money to get that thing set up. Keep the tanks in the house, save your money. But if you are going to put it into your garage, if you live in a northern climate that gets really cold, you're going to have to insulate it. You're going to have to heat it, and that can cost an absolute fortune. If you're lucky like James Largo and you live out in Arizona, then you don't have to worry about that. Really, all you're going to worry about is cooling it in the summertime, because it can get ridiculously hot out there. I've been in Arizona in the summer, and I know how hot it gets. Not as bad as Florida, but it gets pretty hot. So, all right. Prolay Nath. Sir, please give me some suggestions regarding fish selection for 22 gallons tiny African cichlid tank. I'm reading these as they're written. So, if you're going to keep Africans and you're going to do it in a 22 gallon tank, stay away from Malawi. That would be the first thing that I would tell you. My suggestion would be shell dwellers from Lake Tanganyika. They're a lot of fun. They stay very small. You can have them in really small tanks, and they're really cool. They're not as bright and colorful as Malawi fish and Victorians, but they stay really small and they're cute, and they'll hang out in their little shells, and you can get them all different kinds of shells, and it's fun. And they're kind of hard to find though, so we will have them eventually, but as of right now we don't. Just do a search on Google for Lake Tanganyikan shell dwellers. You'll find a ton of information on there. That's what I would suggest. If you must keep it Africans, if you just want to keep it cichlids and not necessarily Africans, you can go with the pistogrammas, you can go with rams. We talked about those in a previous Q&A. Love rams. They stay small. You can have them in a 5-gallon tank and they'll be fine. So you can get cichlids and keep them in that small of a tank. If you're going to have Africans, I would stick with Shelleys. Shane Schimmeler, he is a customer of ours. He's ordered from us a couple of times. Thank you, Shane. I hope I'm saying your name right. What do you do to help get your fish eating again when you start to see them just sitting in a corner and they make no effort to try and eat when you feed? I got one right now that isn't eating and starting to get that sunken belly. I've tried a lot of different things and he still won't eat. I noticed him getting picked on, so I'm going to separate him to a separate tank. I know lots of others have this problem with their cichlids and can't really find a video on what people do to treat this. All right, let's use the human being analogy again. What happens when a teenager or a young person is bullied? What do? They end up getting very reclusive, very standoffish. They stick in their bedroom and they surf the internet and they don't really socialize with people. They try to avoid contact with others because they're bullied and they have trust issues and blah, blah, blah. Well, this fish is doing the same thing. He's getting picked on. He's getting bullied. He's not like that Miami dolphin. He can't just leave and get away from the problem. He's stuck in that tank with those fish that are bullying him. So he's hiding out in the corners or behind a rock or whatever he's doing to avoid confrontation with other fish. And he's stressed out to the point where he's not eating. And if you leave it alone, he probably will end up dying. So my best advice to you, we've had this before. We had it recently with a gorgeous Caroline swallowtail peacock that we put in the 240. He got beat up pretty good, but we caught it before he got too bad off. And we stuck him in a 20-gallon tank, put some Melafix in there, put some salt in there, some stress coat, really babied him for a couple of weeks. And then after he was good and strong and healthy and confident again, we put him back in there. We introduced a few other fish at the same time, and we did it with the tips that I gave in a previous Q&A video, or I think it was a tank talk, where we did it during a water change. We put him in there, we drained the water down to about 50%, which is what I do when I change water in there. And we introduced him along with a few others while we were refilling the tank. There was a lot of chaos going on in the tank. We also fed the fish right then, so it kind of took the other fish that used to bully him, it took their mind off of that. They were confused, there was a lot going on, and they haven't touched him since we put him back in there. So, little timeout, Melifix is one of those medications that I really like when it comes to fin damage and stuff like that. Some salt, baby him, get him strong again, and use some of the tactics that I've given you in other videos to reintroduce him back into the tank. All right, I don't want to keep these videos too long, so we're going to cut it off here. What did we do, 3? I'm going to try to keep it to 3 or 4 on each one of these videos. Folks, I'm having an absolute blast with this series. We're open to the public right now. It's really slow, though, because, you know, Christmas and all that. So I'm trying to get these recorded while we're open to the public. But get your questions coming in. I've got 47 of them now in line. So get them in now so you don't have to wait too long to see your question get answered on this series. KGQ&A. It's right there. See it? See the email right there? That's where you're going to want to email your questions. Not to kgtropicals@gmail.com. KGQ&A@gmail.com, and we'll get your questions answered on this video series. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to turn the camera off and then turn it right back on again and do another one because I'm having so much fun. We'll see you on the next one.